Okay, this meeting is being live streamed. You can start.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. Good evening. And we are continuing with our online mini course and our workshop to develop a manifesto for the Just City. And I just want to remind everyone that it's organized by the TU Delft, but it's in collaboration with several universities around the world, but also with the UN Habitat World Urban Campaign to commemorate Urban October with Pakhuis de Zwijger. It's a cultural platform in Amsterdam that hosts activities connected to the topic of cities for all. And we are extremely glad to have you here and happy that many of you have decided to participate in writing a manifesto. So we are really looking forward to your contributions in the end. So the event is being recorded for the podcast Duty of Care, and the postcard it's a podcast on issues of the Just City, and it's produced by Roberto and by Hugo Lopez. And there are already 14 episodes that are available, and the link will be put in the chat, or it's already there. Thank you, Divya. So I'm still Caroline Newton, as the past two sessions before. And I still want to sort of highlight why we are doing this and why it's so important to really reflect on our role as designers, as planners, in really thinking very critically about the world, how it has been shaped, and what is our role in this. And to really rethink who has the right to sit at the table to co-design these cities, to co-design the cities of the future, and to also become increasingly aware that it's not just us as experts or people that sort of have a professional interest in space and how cities work, but also people who live in these cities, because in the end, by designing, by sort of doing things in space, we are really impacting how people can live their daily lives and how they have opportunities, or maybe how their opportunities are being limited. So it's really, again, a sort of a call to really think of, okay, what is it that we have, what is the role that we play in really trying to make a more just and a more fair city in the future. And so when I say we, and that thinking and sort of co-organizing this event, we is us, the Center for the Just City, as you see on the screen, but also the Global Urban Lab, which is a TU Delft platform that discusses issues of global urbanization in the Global South. And we are also supported by the Delft Global Initiative and the Spatial Justice Network. And thank you, Divya, for putting the links in the chat. So last week we had Professor Hiba Bouakar speaking about planning in post-conflict environments. And unfortunately, Professor Bouakar is not giving us permission to share the lecture on YouTube. So it's no longer available there. Do let us know if you would have any questions about it. But today we have a very special guest. I'm really super happy that she is here, Professor Gynna Millan Brightside from the Universidad del Valle in Cali, Colombia. And I think Roberto will introduce Gynna further.
That's fine. You could also introduce her, but thanks, Caroline. Thanks, Gynna, for being here. It's really a pleasure to have you here, a fellow Latin American. Gynna Franco is an urban designer and researcher specializing on smart cities in the Global South with a focus on informal settlements. Gynna's work incorporates participatory approaches such as video design and photography. She works as a postdoctoral researcher at Colombia Universidad del Valle on the project Building Equitable Urban Future in transition areas in Cali and Havana in Cuba. She has taught at the Polytechnic University of Valencia in Spain, University College London, and the National University of Colombia as a visiting professor. Without further ado, Gynna, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much to you all, Roberto, Caroline, for inviting me to be part of this amazing platform, which I was following already since the beginning. So it's been very, very inspiring, and I'm super privileged, honored to be sharing with you all in this space the work that I've been doing over the last probably years in Colombia as part of my postdoctoral position as well in Universidad del Valle. So I'm going to start here my sharing the screen. I hope you can see it. Present.
Perfect. We can see it very well.
Perfecto. Okay, so I am doing this after 3 amazing presentations in the last 3 weeks, or 2 weeks. But Paranag's presentation, Professor Paranag's presentation also was very, very succinct. It was also very revealing, so it counts as a presentation in itself when she opened this series. And also Professor Clarissa Freitas from Brazil, who put really into context what it means to be doing, to do planning in the Global South. And the same last week with Professor Hugo, whose work in Beirut is very inspiring. Also, something that was left for this presentation for me was how you work with a city that is under reconstruction, and what are the actors at play, and whose memories are the ones that are informing what is that data that is informing the reconstruction of the city. And I think that was very revealing and probably inspiring for my presentation as well. So I thought that with these very big steps from people who are doing really amazing work in the Global South, in Beirut, in Brazil, Professor Paranag's insurgent planning practices and her theory on this, I thought that I would focus today a little bit more on the work that I do, more practical stuff that probably is going to be helpful as well for those who are connected here and who are going to be listening to this later on for the development of the manifesto. So I thought that I would put a little bit more into context what it means to do methodologies for the Just City as the name of this series. So I think what Caroline was saying at the beginning is really an opportunity to think as architects, urbanists, planners, researchers to get close to those realities. How do we get close to those realities? How people experience their urban communities, what they think about those communities, how they innovate, how they respond to the global challenges, to the local challenges of the cities, and how do we hear, how do we listen to those realities? These are people, again, usually planning in the Global South is working with very disadvantaged communities, with marginalized peoples, and people who have no power or are, little power or probably no power, or people who are lacking agency to really impact the way that decisions are made about their cities, about their local environments, about their neighborhoods. So I think it is important about methodologies because those are the ones that allow us to get the sense of what the scale of the reality is, what are the interventions, how the interventions are going to be developed, and hopefully at the end, those interventions make a collective social change. So I think this is a very important topic. I'm going to start with this man who is probably some of you know him already. He's Orlando Falsborda. He's a Colombian sociologist who I think revolutionized the way that sociology was being taught in Colombia and in Latin America in general in the 70s. He's also the father of something that we know today as participatory action research. I mean, this is something big that has inspired so many researchers, and more those ones that align with the idea of social constructivism agendas. So in his methodology, basically, he went to the to the Caribbean coast in the 70s, and he went to work with Fishy communities in the middle of a extremely violent context. Agrarian revolution was happening in Colombia, and people were being displaced from their land, from their lands. So he wanted to understand what how this violence was being experienced by these marginalized communities in the Caribbean coast. So he thought that, he learned from the communities themselves, and he basically started understanding that knowledge was something that was co-constructed, and as researchers, we needed to get close to those ideas of the ideas of constructing communities. And I thought that this citation from him, or the way that he was seeing the world at that time, is very inspiring for starting this presentation. Is that our wise men and women are not in Europe with the great political thinkers that we have read about in history, but they are here in the jungles, in the rivers, and they are fishing for survival. And it is to them that we must listen in order to achieve what we dream of, and that is utopia. And I think this utopia is going to be part of my whole presentation, and more here with this idea of sentir pensar. I don't know if you heard about it, but this is something that really kind of is the core of participatory action research in the eyes of Orlando Falsborda, learning from the communities in the coast, and is something that is a feeling thinking. It's very difficult to translate what it means, but I think Galeano, another writer, Latin American writer, very famous, who also thought about and wrote about sentir pensar, he wrote in 1987, we need people, and in this case, I'm talking about researchers, who do not separate reason from the heart, who feel and think at the same time without divorcing the head from the body, not emotion from reason. And this is a call, I think, is the type of abilities, the type of skills that we are in need right now as architects, as urban planners, as practitioners, development practitioners. We need to develop empathy. We need participation in communities is an act of solidarity. Participation is an act of advocacy. And this is something that we cannot disentangle from our practice. Our practice is shaped through the things that we learn from the people we work with. So I think this is very powerful because in a way, Orlando Falsborda and Orlando learned from the people. This is something that was not defined by him, but it was learned by working with the communities in the coast. And I think this is powerful in the sense that we as architects need to develop something that is beyond rational thinking and just developing in the traditional sense data, collecting data, information. Is about having that dialectical dialogue with the communities, and it's a communication that is in two ways, where researchers are part of the struggles that the people experience in the ground. They become part of the community boards, the assemblies. They listen to what is happening in the ground, but also those people in the ground learn how to collect data, to make strategies, to develop strategies that allow them to seek for social change in their communities. So I'm going to take you a little bit to the work that I've been developing, and I know this is a very kind of short session, but I thought that I would focus a little bit more on the work that I've been doing very recently with the work that Roberto and Caroline was mentioning at the beginning of the presentation as a postdoctoral researcher here in Universidad del Valle in Cali, and as part of the research project called GREAT. You are going later. I'm going to share the website. I don't have it here. Sorry, I should have looked for it and to share it here. So GREAT is Guiding Equitable Futures in Areas of Transition in Cali and Havana. But I'm going to be focusing on the work that we've been developing here in Cali. Cali is the third largest city in Colombia. It has about 2.5 million of inhabitants, and also is as similar to Bogota and Medellin. They are very unequal cities. Colombia is one of the most unequal cities in Latin America. Sorry, the most unequal countries in Latin America, and Medellin and Cali are those cities that also rank high in these positions. So they are, of course, as many Latin American cities, they share the same history, a wealth concentration in very, the very few, in the hands of the very few, and then very unequal opportunities, unequal space for and very fragmented cities for the rest. So also that is very important, and it's in the context, and Clarissa in her presentation, she basically went right to the many challenges that we have in designing cities in the Global South, in designing strategies for cities in the Global South. I'm not going to repeat them. She made very clear how difficult it is to actually approach these challenges. But one thing that happened in Colombia that is a bit distinct to the rest of the Latin American cities is the forced displacement that people have experienced in the country. Forced displacement that is very historical. It's been over 70 years now that we have been in conflict, and over the last 20, 30 years, according to the Observatory for Victims Unit, more than 8 million people has been forcibly displaced. And the statistics for last year, for instance, says that 7 out of those 10 displaced people are Afro-descendant or indigenous peoples. So meaning that the vulnerable are the ones that are being re-victimized. The vulnerable are the ones that are being still victims of this calamity that is continuous, and it hasn't. We thought that this would be kind of a transition to peace after the signing of the peace accord in 2016 for Colombia, but it was far from that idea. And this is very present in Colombian society. Every day we continue seeing the images of people being displaced. And I think it's very important to mention this because forced displacement has been the planner in this country. Violence has been the planning secretary, the planning ministry in this country, is the one that has shaped the way that our cities have been growing and have been developing. And this is something that has been in a very fast speed that has, in a way, limited the reaction from the planners or from the official, entities that are in charge of planning. So this is the reality of Cali, and what we are going to see is or the work that we've been doing with the research project, GREAT. It's been concentrated in District 18, Comuna 18. I'm sorry that I didn't bring the Colombian map to locate it, but Cali is in the south of the country, southwest of the country. And this is the typical geopolitical division of Cali. And these numbers are the number of comunas or districts in which the city is divided. Just to put in context, the comuna here, the comuna or district 22 is the richest. I mean, in Cali, everyone knows that the Comuna 22 is where the community is, where all the wealth is concentrated in the city, and where the majority of best services are located. So here is where we are working, is in Comuna 18. Sorry that I keep referring Comuna 18, but it's just the way that it's District 18, and the district is divided into 16, 20, 25 neighborhoods. And we are working in 4 neighborhoods which are at the periphery, and here in a closer look is the 4 neighborhoods where we are working. Those 4 neighborhoods are located, of course, at the periphery of in the peri-urban area, rural urban area, and of course they are very new settlements which have grown as a result of the dynamics of the forced displacement coming from the south of the country and getting into the city. So these are places, and most of Latin American popular neighborhoods are growing because of people arriving in the city and finding the only places where they are able to pay a rent, they are able to afford a rent, are in informal settlements, because of course it's cheaper, but also the conditions of living are very, very poor, usually without infrastructure for many of the basic services that are needed to live in the city. So these 4 neighborhoods, Brisas de las Palmas, La Arboleda, Pampa del Mirador, Alto Polvorines, around 10,000 people are living in these 4 neighborhoods. So, sorry, I made a mistake. 6,000 people around are living in those 4 neighborhoods. So the main objective of our project is to see how, connecting areas of transition and areas of transition being here, popular neighborhoods or informal settlements. Popular neighborhoods are the way in majority of Latin American countries we say informal settlements because of the idea of not calling them informal, because people are in a way also reivindicating or vindicating the way that they call the social production of their own neighborhoods, because they call it neighborhoods. There is no informal settlements, there are no squatter settlements, they are neighborhoods that have been built through the pockets of those that actually don't have any money in their pocket. So it's quite contradictory, but that's a way of also resignifying the way that people see the production of the space. So for us, it's connecting areas of transition, popular neighborhoods that are disconnected from the benefit of the formal city through strategies that emerge from community participation and empowerment. So this is why we, in the project, we started developing something called the PopuLab, or the Laboratory for Popular Neighborhoods, an observatory, a place that we think is a place where the city is thought and built from and with the participation of diverse social identities. And I'm going to be emphasizing a bit of this idea of diverse social identities, because this is something that is a framework that is allowing us to kind of start looking and observing what is going on within these 4 neighborhoods in this relative. The PopuLab is a place where other ways of knowing come together in dialogue to produce new urban knowledge, nurtured from the realities and experiences of residents themselves. And the PopuLab is a place to imagine and prototype strategies toward neighborhood upgrading policies more just and inclusive. In brackets, with an intersectional approach. I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on that, what it means, and what is the theory about intersectionality and how we are applying it in working with the people and with these policies that are related to neighborhood upgrading. And we are doing it through, of course, we have three points to understand how people experience, how they live the everyday city, how they produce it, what are the triggers, what are the drivers that allow people to continue. And I remember Paranak mentioning like the everyday hope, what are those radical strategies and how they concentrate those needs and aspirations to develop new strategies and to imagine a better future from those popular neighborhoods. So we have 3 lines of action, or the PopuLab has these 3 lines of action that are public policy, or understanding how urban policy, in this case specifically, the neighborhood upgrading policies are being developed, and how the work and the initiatives that are from the bottom up are responding to those ideas. And also we have mobility as to understand what are the mobilities and immobilities, and not just focus on the infrastructure, not just focusing on if the bus enters to the neighborhood, if the bus allows people to get to the formal city, but what other mobilities are happening or immobilities are being present within the neighborhoods, and how those mobilities allow them to connect and to create stronger strategies for neighborhood upgrading, for instance. And also a third one, which is very important and is related to climate change, and is part of this big challenge that we have ahead, and is waste management. Usually, and we know that informal settlements are seen as pockets of misery, pockets of rubbish, pockets of poverty, and all the stuff that is the very stigma that the residents of neighborhoods have to bear. But so this is one of the line of actions that we are seeing, and we are trying to understand how people respond, how people manage their solid waste, what are the other alternatives, and if, why not, they are probably reference for zero waste strategies, zero waste initiatives we as the formal city can learn from, and that can be a scale up. I think that's very powerful and very important. So following this, and it was like the big challenge, how do we get close to those realities? And I think this is the very kind of objective of this presentation, is how do we get close to those lines of actions, how we get close to the way people are building the city every day. So we thought that we would combine, of course, the PopuLab would be a combination of mixed methodologies, qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative because, of course, when we talk about getting close to the community, participatory action research is like kind of the methodology that allowed us to get into conversation, into dialogue with those other ways of knowing, or usually tacit knowledge that people have built and have amassed over the years, over the history of planning, community planning throughout the years. So how we get access to that tacit knowledge and how we put it in dialogue with experts, not saying that we are experts, but let's say that translating those knowledges to inform urban planning or the official structures of planning in the city. So, and also the quantitative is extremely important. And we, through this project, we learned that data around informal settlements is not readily available. And probably many projects have developed a lot of data, have collected a lot of data, but somehow they keep repeating themselves, or this data is not open source. This data is not in repositories where people can access it, or is being collected systematically so it can be read in certain periods of time and can inform decision making. So somehow data can be collected around neighborhoods. It is collected and many people are putting efforts on it, but it still is lacking the architecture, the structure that somehow policymakers on the other side of the table are expecting to see. So I think this is something that came across in our way of making, designing the methodology to approach community. So participatory tools, of course, we did the collective transit walks, we talked to the community, we have conversations with the people, we recognize the territory, of course. We are building on the work that the community, the university has done in the area for many, many years. I mean, we didn't arrive without any knowledge and we started from zero. We were building on something that the Universidad del Valle, which is in the same comuna, is just the neighbor of the Comuna 18, has been engaged through the courses of extension, through all the social responsibility from the university, and all the work that architects and planners have been doing over the years in there. So it was easier for us to also get access to and get the trust from the communities and from the leaders themselves to see that we were not just new researchers coming into the place, but we were building on something that they were also part of. So we had community workshops, meaning social cartographies, workshops, photography workshops, video and audio workshops, and big part of this was the participatory video, which is something that I also been working a lot over the last years. It's one of the methodologies that I use and I have found very, very interesting. I'm going to focus a little bit more on that. But then in digital mapping, we use, of course, all the things that are available. For us, was very important to have open source software. So we use field papers. Probably you have heard of it, Mapillary and QGIS. Field papers. If you, I just not going to focus too much on it, but I thought that it would be very helpful for you to just have it in your repository of tools that you can use at some point. Fieldpapers.org is an opportunity, is an amazing platform, it's open source, it's free. And when working with communities, working in environments where you don't have the computer, where you don't have your mobile phone, because probably the mobile phone doesn't have signal, or because entering neighborhoods that are, you don't know what the dynamics are, it can be very dangerous for you to be hanging around with communities or people and put yourself in risk. Because maybe you are just hanging around with phones that can be very flashy, and you can just put yourself into a very vulnerable position, in terms of guns. And this is something that is the reality of many informal settlements in the country and in Latin America. So field papers allow you to print to make an atlas, to select the area where you are working, usually on a base of OpenStreetMaps. And then you are able to select the area to print it. And this grid that you see there is an A4, is an A4 format. So basically you can print it out. You can just go and go with your atlas to the place, to the neighborhoods, and have workshops and work with the people and make notes and put post-its and collect all the information that the people are sharing with you. And then with this information, you can go to QGIS, or QGIS, we call it QGIS. I don't know how is the right pronunciation, but this is an open source of GIS system, which is amazing, readily available for us to work with and translate all that information that you have collected, that you have been with the people, all the stories, you can map them in there, and then you can translate all this into something that is very powerful when you have conversations with local planners, when you have conversations with a secretary of planning or a secretary of housing that need to have this geo-reference data to be able to just have concrete actions or develop concrete actions regarding a territory. So I think this is very powerful tool. And of course, you can see Mapillary and you can see more about QGIS, but I thought that I will mention it because I think we have found that these are very powerful tools to kind of map differently, to have alternatives about mapping that are not the usual ones and allow us to create new maps and new narratives. So I mentioned that I would focus a little bit more about this intersectional approach. I'm not going to dig deep in this, but what has been very interesting, the intersectional theory invite us to just be aware of the amount of the layers of oppression or layers of privilege that some people can accumulate throughout their lives. So what this means is that I'm going to talk about oppressions because this is not the case to talk about privilege. It's just to be aware that many people are more privileged than others, but many people can accumulate many layers of oppression depending on their social identities. So meaning that it's not the same to be an Afro woman, but it's not the same to be an Afro woman in front of a white woman. Their rights are completely different and their opportunities as well. But also, it's not the same to be an Afro woman that is a lesbian Afro woman or that is a lesbian Afro woman living in an informal settlement. So meaning having an informal address of not being recognized by the official cartography of the city. So all these layers of oppression means something for the people. And something that we needed to understand is that to develop urban planning policies that are aiming at neighborhood upgrading, we need to recognize that people are not the same and people are not experiencing the same realities depending on who they are. So understanding this is very powerful and it's easy to mention it, but how you collect it, how you go and map that data, how you make it available for those eyes that make decisions. And I think this is something that we are still trying to understand how we grasp all this information, but we have made some steps towards something that we know is something different, and is about thinking that methodologies have to accommodate, have to be accommodate the needs and aspirations of those different realities of those individuals that are not necessarily a collective or homogeneous collective, but is a collective full of different experiences. The diversity of experiences are the ones that are very, very important. So this image only demonstrates the way that we just started categorizing what we have in the ground. So we needed to recognize with this intersectional approach, we needed to recognize that people have ethnic and racial belonging, and for that is they are suffering oppressions or they are being discriminated against. That also gender is very important. Is one of those factors of oppression. Being survivor of the armed conflict, being a victim of the conflict is something. Is also a layer of oppression. Community participation, being a leader in Colombia, being a social leader, being a community leader can put your life at risk literally every day. So this is also an oppression. It's not necessarily an advantage, but it's like putting yourself in the target. Again, of people or groups that are not very happy with your participation or your active participation. Also functional diversity. If you have a reduced mobility in the neighborhood, if you have a mental diversity, or if you have this way of moving differently in the neighborhoods. And also the last one, being a resident of popular neighborhood, what it means, what does it mean to be something, someone who somehow cannot benefit from and is not recognized and cannot benefit fully from the benefits of the city. So we went out there, and it was really important to start by having the data, the hard data right. And we began with the census, and we asked the Secretary of Cali, the Secretary of Housing in Cali, we asked them to lend us the template they have for the census, the usual census that they collect every 4 years. And we included the intersectionality approach into the census. So we asked the questions: if we are aiming at changing something, we need to map it. We need to geospatialize it. We need to ask the question directly to the people who are inhabiting the territory. So we have this socioeconomic survey with an intersectional approach. It's very kind of big name, but what allowed us was to just get closer and to get some answers from the people, how they are, for instance, what are their perceptions of security, if being a woman is limited in terms of having access to the opportunities of being an Afro woman, or being an LGBT woman, or person, person of LGBT member, would be given advantage, and would be given opportunities for the people in terms of accessing the formal city. So we also did participatory videos. I mentioned it in the beginning. And this is something that was very powerful because, of course, we were collecting this very hard data. We were collecting the facts. We were collecting the evidence, the way that the official or the traditional planning states. And we wanted to play that game as well. We wanted to just allow ourselves to demonstrate that is possible, that we can geospatialize data that is not necessarily being collected by the planning offices. So also we wanted to get to know the realities of the people. So we thought that it would be a very important part of the process to get to know the realities of the people in the ground. So participatory video allowed us to get access to the personal stories, the local stories, how people experience, how they arrive in the neighborhood, who they are, how they experience the neighborhoods where they live on a daily basis, what they are doing to make it better, how they interact with the people, how they participate, how they get together. Like it was something that was big, and we really needed to kind of put that idea that they are not just a number, they are people who have very different realities and who have very different needs and aspirations. And from those very different needs and aspirations, they are making the everyday city, even though it's not necessarily still not part of the cartography of the city. So this is how we got into this idea of developing a participatory video called Intersectional Lives. And I'm going to very quickly pass here some of the profile, some of the people who were sharing with us some of their experiences in the neighborhood. So we met Alondra, a 43-year-old transgender woman who was the first transgender woman in the neighborhood, or to arrive in the neighborhood, and she was part of the construction of the neighborhood. She's Afro-descendant, and of course she is a very vulnerable person in the neighborhoods, because she lives in a very high-risk area where attitudes towards LGBT community are really, really strong, but also not just the LGBT community, but the trans people, the trans community are even they experience even more discrimination in the neighborhood. So she shared with us that being a transgender woman is experiencing very high levels of discrimination, but also something that is very, and we didn't know, is that for her to access adequate housing, to access subsidies for a minimal housing or housing in the neighborhood is still very difficult. So if we were going to develop a neighborhood upgrading policy that is inclusive, we needed to count on the stories of these women as being trans in a neighborhood that is already facing a lot of discrimination in the city. So it was like kind of a chain of discriminations going in there and being visible. Also, we met Luz Milvia, sorry. Luz Milvia is an indigenous woman from Jambalo, Cauca. Jambalo, Cauca is in the south of the country. She arrived 20 years ago in District 18, and she lives there, and she grew her family in District 18. She lives with her husband and her 2 children. But what is important is that Luz Milvia is an independent recycler, and she's been doing it for almost 11 years. And it's incredible how every day, or not every day, but Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, she put her sacks in the bags on her shoulder, and she walked the streets up and down before the official car comes to collect the waste. Before they take it away, she recovers plastic, she recovers cardboard, she recovers, and this is the way. It's incredible, but the way that she was telling us is that all her livelihood is being a recycler in the neighborhood, and the impact that her actions have in the neighborhood is somehow hidden. It's not that people actually recognize her labor and her actions and her initiatives. But it has an impact. And also we met Justiniano, who is a 46-year-old man with functional diversity. He's displaced. He's a displaced man, from the south of the country, El Tambo, Cauca, which is another department in the south of the country. And he arrived in District 18 20 years ago, and is a community leader. And even in his very limited position in terms of mobility, he's the occasional carer for his father. And he shared with us that mobility for people with functional diversity is a daily challenge due to the physical infrastructures and the physical and infrastructural barriers that we face on a daily basis. And they are aggravated by the topographical conditions of the neighborhood. And this is like usually these 4 neighborhoods and some of the others in Comuna 18, as many others in Latin America, they are usually on the hills. It's like kind of, I don't want to generalize, but most of the ones in here in Colombia, in Medellin, in Cali, are usually in the hills. So it makes it much more difficult for people to access it and to even have access to other infrastructures of mobility. So I'm almost arriving to my last slides. But what I wanted to show here is that this work and all this kind of strategy, participatory action research, even participatory methodologies that are qualitative and that allow us to have access to hard data, was in a way put together to kind of do what we call an intersectional mapping. A mapping that is not, we are used to have the land use, we are used to have the height of the buildings before we project something different. And this is very traditional planning approaches. But through this approach, we have learned is that we can definitely geo-reference these socio-spatial inequalities, that we can turn different ways of understanding the territory into mapping. And what we have here, for instance, is one of those what we call a map of where people showed us the spaces of oppression, where they feel that they are not safe, where they feel that people are somehow, aggressive because I am trans and I'm not feeling safe in that public space. But then other people said, I'm not feeling safe because I'm a child, because I am a youth, or because I am an older woman and I cannot pass through that public space. So understanding that a space is co-constructed, but all these experiences are shaping the way that people feel in the neighborhood, even though we see at the very bird's view, we feel that they are very safe spaces, that they are very harmless, but this understanding that these are the stories that people are reporting is important for us to kind of map them and to start these discussions and to start these conversations with the authorities and with the planning, with the planners in the public entities. So here we have, for instance, the 4 neighborhoods, people mapping themselves, how they feel in certain spaces, oppression spaces, because of gender, because of ethnic ethnic racial belonging, or because they are survivors of the national armed conflict. But also it was an opportunity to map those spaces and to capture the imagination where they feel there are opportunities to imagine a different neighborhood, where they have other aspirations, or where they see that there are opportunities for development and to make their environment better in terms of, you know, neighborhood upgrading policy. So it was very important. This is not finished. This is still work in progress. What I'm showing here is part of the process that we are undertaking right now. But also we are aiming at something like these maps that can show the diversity of experiences, that can show the diversity of realities and experiences of the people all together in one map that can inform. This is only one of many opportunities or many other methodologies that or alternatives that we have as planners and architects and probably facilitators of knowledge in communities, to demonstrate that this kind of experiences can be mapped and can shape the way others or planners or entities are approaching neighborhood upgrading. So a final point here is that through the work, we found that a key point to imagining more just and equitable urban futures is to first geo-reference socio-spatial inequalities, which are not new, that they are historical, and because they are so embedded in our privileges, they are very difficult to identify and to make them visible, and therefore to put an agenda when, for example, addressing the social production of the city from popular neighborhoods or impacting the development of public policies for neighborhood upgrading. And I just want to go back to the idea of Orlando Falsborda and go back to Eduardo Galeano. And probably you know this quote already, but this is the way that I was reflecting about the challenge of thinking about the just city. The just city for me is, of course, and for many of us is utopia. And if utopia is on the horizon, this is the quote of Galeano: utopia is on the horizon. I walk 2 steps, it moves 2 steps away, and the horizon runs 10 steps farther. So what is utopia for? That's what it is for. It is for walking. And I think just remembering what Paranax was saying in the beginning of this series, we need to walk the just city. We need to walk utopia. We need to methodologies, and thinking about alternative methodologies on how to engage with people is a big part of making the just city on a daily basis, understanding how people understand space. That is not the same as we as professionals in space do it. So it's about being humble, it's about being empathetic, it's about building emotions, and going back to sentipensar, which is something that resonates a lot with me, being close to the people and to the realities, and feeling without the need of stop thinking, but thinking while feeling the city. Is an important part of building a just city, or searching for that utopia. That is what brings us in this platform. And I think that's really powerful. I'm gonna leave it there. I don't know if I took longer than expected, but I think
it took a bit longer, but that's fine.
I'm sorry, Roberto.
Thank you.
Okay, let me just stop here.
Caroline.
Okay.
Yes, well, Gynna, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation and making it so hands-on, really showing us how you can include these other ways of looking, of knowing, and I think it's really important for us as designers, because we always work from our own biases, from our own backgrounds, and you have shown how you can sort of uncover the other knowledge, but in a very respectful way. And I've written down so many things, and I have a couple of questions, but I'm sure people in the audience also have. But I just want to ask one thing before I go to the questions in the chat, and that is, now you have shown how you can map it, how you can map challenges and opportunities, but how is there a next step that you envisage in the project of how to include it in interventions or in design?
Thank you, Caroline, for adding. This is something that I was doubting to put, because I was like already too much information, but thank you for expanding on that. We right now, it's like we call it that the planets have aligned somehow in this government to find governments or politicians that compromise into investing or to believe in this kind of strategies is very difficult. And we have found that in Cali right now, there is a political will. They want to develop the first or the pilot project for neighborhood upgrading, and they are going to begin with the four neighborhoods we have selected. And this is due, of course, with so many negotiations, so many persuading spaces that we have, or people in Universidad del Valle, researchers have been building over the last years. And now we have this amazing opportunity to apply this intersectional approach, this neighborhood upgrading program with an intersectional approach, beginning with these four neighborhoods. So yes, we are right now at the state of formulating how this is going to be done. But something that is important through these methodologies is that we identify public spaces, because that's one important part of, to begin with, neighborhood upgrading. Public spaces where we are applying this intersectional approach, intersectional mapping, to understand how the different the diverse social identities that inhabit the territory shape the spaces. So yes, we are doing this this is the next step, and also hopefully to have the program that can be implemented not only in Comuna 18, but in other comunas around Cali, and of course, why not, and at the national level. So yes, this is the next step, and we are in conversations with the Secretary of Housing and Habitat in Cali. They've been partners from the very beginning, and at the beginning, it was very difficult for them to understand what this intersectional approach meant, or what these new dialogues and this kind of things that we talk very widely in academia, but it's very difficult when you have to just deliver something, the message. But that's something that fortunately is happening, and we are very, very happy for that.
Gynna, thank you so much for being so practical in your presentation. I think the students are they appreciate things that they can really connect and use very, very much. One of the questions that was sent to me, I think by mistake, was, what is the application you use to do the circular diagram? People want to know.
Okay, this is it's called Observable. Okay, I'm gonna put it here. Observable. It's database, literally. We just put the information and it makes it. So yeah, this is one of those platforms that allow you to kind of put an Excel sheet in there, and then automatically allows you to have this kind of interesting visualizations, which I found really powerful when talking with people, going with community, talking with people in the community leaders, people who are not very savvy about written form. Putting this kind of information visualized with their own data is part of the pedagogical process of allowing communities to build their own data and to analyze it, to be able to impact as well, public policies. And I think that's something really important for us. Or that was part of the objectives when designing our methodology.
Okay. So, Simge, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, is praising you, that she's saying that it's really beneficial for her work. Shafinas, I think Tainas, I think we answered your question. Nuran is asking, how can you evaluate your approach was successful in designing a public space?
Well, this is something we are building right now, how we define success. I think in the way we are working with the communities and how we engage, I think a successful public space design with an intersectional approach is a space where people feel safe, regardless of their social identity. That is accessible to the people regardless of their social identity. Even if you are a child, or if you are an elderly woman, or you have a physical limitation, or if you have a whatever thing, how diverse you are able to be in the space. I think that's the definition for success for us, and we understand that it's very difficult to achieve. But we are in the process of designing. We are in the process of defining what it means to achieve it. Probably in 3 or 4 years, we'll be able to see what is the impact of applying intersectional approaches to public spaces. But I think that would be what we define to have as success in terms of design.
Mehreen is asking, what were any conclusions during your work with that surprised you or subverted expectations?
I think there are many stories that emerge when you engage so much with the ground and you start like living and experiencing the realities of the people, because they somehow want to share. People want to be listened to. People want to share the stories, and I think something that I didn't mention, but we also use a lot of storytelling, and storytelling is part of the participatory video. A video is simply a story told in video. So storytelling is part of this process, because it entails how we open ourselves to listen to those stories that are not necessarily very happy stories, but are the stories related to violence, related to crime, related to displacement, and so it's very, very difficult to do it, to start listening. But some of the things that we learned that were kind of important for us, the story of Alondra I mentioned in the beginning. I think it was really revealing for us the way that she, just for being trans, is at the lowest part of the pyramid in terms of accessing decent housing, in terms of accessing any kind of already limited access in the neighborhood, but she was at the lowest scale. And that was revealing for us, because usually we don't think about those kind of individualities, those kind of individual experiences. We think that people are suffering, that's it, in the neighborhood. People are suffering, people don't have access to infrastructures. We think people are struggling a lot to get access to opportunities in the city. But when we start getting close to this, it's completely different. People are well, in the case of Alondra, experiencing this limited access to housing. But on the positive side of things, people are finding or creating solutions for the everyday challenges that the city, being disconnected from the city, has. So Luz Milvia, for instance, is one of the stories that we thought that it was very revealing. And when we did the participatory video and we projected to the people themselves, we had a community projection one day showing all the different people, characters that we have identified. And the reactions of the people were like, oh my God, praising Luz Milvia, sorry. She was like, oh my God, this is, we didn't know she did this. And now I'm going to be preparing every Monday, every Wednesday, I'm going to be collecting for her, and I'm going to just save her some time. And I'm gonna just prepare the things for her to collect, so she doesn't have to, put the hands in the waste to collect and rescue. So these kind of actions were super revealing for us, because it was in a way what we said at the beginning, how to make them visible, not for only for the official, planners and the Secretary of Housing. It was how to make it visible for themselves, and how to start from identifying what people do in the neighborhood for the benefit of them as a collective.
Thank you. Look, Gynna, we are a bit short of time, and I am really sorry that I hurried you up. So really sorry for this, but we need to give some time for the students to discuss among themselves. So Gynna, on behalf of the Delft University of Technology and all our partners and all the universities that are working with us on this project, thank you so very much. I think especially for me, particularly, I love life stories, when we can use life stories in our research. And I think that's not very common in other places. But please, students, participants, pay attention to that. How can you use life stories to illustrate and to investigate as a research tool, right? Thank you so much.
Thank you all for having me. Really appreciate this opportunity, and I hope your engagements continue being as successful as they have been so far. And I'm going to be very curious about the manifestos you're going to be developing from this amazing series.
Me too. I'm very, very curious. Thank you.
Thank
welcome to hang around. So let's give next time I will ask people to open their cameras. Guys, we are going to have an interaction moment. So I'm not going to do a break, because you can go and have a break if you want. We put on the chat the link to the Miro board. I hope you could see it. If not, maybe Divya already put it again. We don't know if it's going to work with so many people, but we are going to try, okay? We are going to put you in breakout rooms again, and we are going to ask you to write what are the main takeaways from this session in your group, right? You have to really quickly introduce yourself super quickly, and then find one place in the Miro board and discuss. And we want to see the results later. You're going to have 20 minutes to do that, so we will finish on time. I'm going to create the rooms now. I hope you can join the rooms. You have to join the rooms, huh? You generally get a message, and you have to join the rooms. I can see people are joining. If you can't join a room, please let us know. The idea is that you find a little place, a little corner in the Miro board for your group, and that you use the Miro board to discuss. So I have here Maria Sofia. I'm going to assign you to a room. Victoria Gasca to another room. Alan Rosillo, I'm going to put you in another room. Florina, if you want you're very welcome to join the rooms and to discuss with the students. It's up to you if you want to.
Sorry, Roberto, are you talking to me?
To Florina.
Okay. Sorry. I'm going to disconnect now. Thank you very much, Roberto, Caroline. Thanks a lot. Have a good day. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Evening. Bye-bye.
Evening.
Thank you.
Okay, I see lots of people still in the room. Wow, that was nice, right? I really liked it.
Yeah, super nice. And I agree with what you said about the storytelling. It's so important. It really illustrates something.
Yeah, like it really makes the research more real, because you're talking to real people, right? Like, oh my God, there are some rooms that have only one person. How do you do this?
Can you, maybe we can switch them to other rooms.
Yeah, there are quite a few people who didn't join. Yeah, this it's imperfect. It doesn't work very well.
It's also so many students. It's difficult to manage this.
Yeah, when it's 10 people, it's easy, right, to manage. But
Yeah.
200, it's well, not 200, but okay, guys. There are people here still in the room, but you are welcome to talk to us and interact. But if you want to join a room, let us know. I'm pushing people to rooms. And Gynna was speaking very fast. I think I put pressure on her.
I think it was okay. It was less fast than last week.